Right now, we're learning more about President Trump's plan to contain the coronavirus in a national address on the spread.
Plus, we're looking at what comes next for students and local businesses as UW-Madison suspends in-person classes.
And it's dry right now, but grab that umbrella before you head out the door this morning. We're talking about the chance for rain coming up in just a few minutes.
This is News 3 Now this morning.
Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, March 12th. Hope your day is off to a great start. I'm Christina Laurie in for Leah Lynchide this morning.
Good to have you here, Christina. I'm Josh Spreiter. There are 126,254 confirmed cases worldwide in the coronavirus pandemic. 1,312 of those cases are right here in the United States, and 6 of those are in Wisconsin.
One of those patients has recovered, leaving 5 active cases here. 3 of those we learned of just yesterday from the DHS. 2 in Fond du Lac County and 1 in Waukesha County. They say the Waukesha County patient was exposed while traveling in the U.S. and internationally. In Fond du Lac County, 1 patient was exposed in the U.S., the other was exposed internationally. 2 of the patients are isolated at home, while a 3rd has been hospitalized. It is worth noting, of the more than 126,000 cases worldwide, nearly 60,000 of those people have recovered.
Breaking news into the newsroom within the last few minutes here. The European Union is criticizing President Trump's decision to ban travel from Europe. The EU says the president made that decision unilaterally without consulting with them first. The president first announced travel restrictions in a primetime speech from the White House while addressing the coronavirus pandemic.
I have decided to take several strong but necessary actions to protect the health and well-being of all Americans. To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
President Trump says those new rules will go into effect this weekend. Following the president's address, the Department of Homeland Security issued a clarification that the travel restrictions will exclude U.S. citizens and permanent residents. The president also said the restrictions would apply to trade. However, he tweeted 30 minutes later saying that trade would be, quote, in no way affected by the 30-day restriction.
This comes as the president canceled an event for next week that was scheduled to take place in Milwaukee. Organizers say the decision was made out of an abundance of caution due to coronavirus. In the meantime, as of now, Vice President Mike Pence is still planning to campaign in Wisconsin next week. He will be in Rothschild on March 19th. That's 1 week from today.
Meanwhile, the CDC is awarding hundreds of millions of dollars to state and local jurisdictions around the country in support of the ongoing response to the virus. According to a release, Wisconsin was receiving more than $10 million. Officials say this is part of the $8.3 billion in emergency funding bill passed by Congress last week.
Governor Tony Evers, along with the Lieutenant Governor, DHS, and Wisconsin Emergency Management will hold a press conference this morning to discuss updates to the state's response to this pandemic. News 3 Now will be live streaming those events online. They begin at 11:30.
Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett is calling for Governor Evers to declare a public health emergency. He says declaring an emergency will open the door for federal resources. Though Milwaukee has not seen a case of COVID-19 yet, the city is focusing on preparation and proactive measures. Barrett says they plan to open a hotline by the end of the week to answer any questions about the virus.
Actor Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson have tested positive for the virus. According to the statement released by the couple, the two were in Australia for production of a new movie. In a Twitter post, Hanks describes their symptoms as similar to those of a cold with some body aches. Hanks says they both have slight fevers, and Wilson is experiencing intermittent chills. He says the couple will stay isolated as long as public health and safety requires.
In an unprecedented move, the NBA says all games are suspended until further notice. This move comes as Utah Jazz player Rudy Gobert tested positive for coronavirus. Just days before, Gobert made a point of touching every microphone on his way out of a press conference after the league implemented a policy of keeping reporters out of locker rooms. Gobert had already been removed from the Jazz's roster for last night's game against the Thunder, but following the announcement of his diagnosis, that game was canceled.
The game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe. And take your time in leaving the arena tonight and do so in an orderly fashion. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are all safe. And you can visit OKCThunder.com for updates on upcoming games.
The Boston Celtics were scheduled to play the Bucks in Milwaukee tonight, but now they're under self-quarantine in that city this morning. The Celtics played against Gobert and the Jazz just 5 days ago, which is within the incubation period for the virus.
Several colleges in Wisconsin, including the UW-Madison, are joining the list of schools across the country in suspending in-person classes. UW announced it is suspending in-person classes starting March 23rd, shifting to what it is calling an alternate instruction online. They're also asking all students not to return to usual classes after next week's scheduled spring break. In-person classes won't resume until at least April 10th.
I know of no example where we've taken this type of a step, and I might say up until 10 years ago, I don't think it would have been possible to think about alternative delivery methods because we didn't have the technologies available.
This change will be reevaluated in early April, with Chancellor Black saying if there aren't any newly discovered cases of coronavirus, it's likely the university will go back to its normal operations.
UW-La Crosse, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Stevens Point, Edgewood College, and Beloit College are all taking similar precautions this morning. We have specifics on their plans up on our website, channel3000.com. UW-Whitewater and Platteville say they are still weighing their options. News of the shift to online courses is raising concerns for local business owners this morning, as a lot of those small businesses rely on students. Many are preparing for a slow next few weeks, especially those who run the food carts on campus.
I don't know yet. It's gonna be slow for us, so, but if too slow, we will closing a little bit, you know. And when they come back, everything get better. We'll come back.
We will keep track of the local economic impacts COVID-19 has on our small business owners in the coming weeks.
Something that does also impacts us all, the weather. Let's turn it over to meteorologist Hattie McLean. Hi, Hattie.
So much, Hattie.
Well, temperatures on the rise and spring is right around the corner, meaning flooding is once again becoming an issue around northeast Wisconsin. In Brown County, residents are already experiencing flooding.
If you have flooding in your neighborhood last year, there's definitely a high potential of you having flooding again this year, and you may be asked to leave. Have a bag packed. If you have pets, think of what you're going to do with them. Have a place to go.
Their Public Works Department says they're monitoring the flooding this morning as the temperature rises.
President Donald Trump is signing off on a Wisconsin disaster declaration related to a multi-day storm this past winter. He's ordering federal assistance to supplement state and local recovery efforts in Milwaukee, Racine, and Kenosha counties, all affected by the storm and flooding this past January. The storm caused upwards of $30 million in damage along the Lake Michigan shoreline.
The House of Representatives is approving a war powers resolution. It aims to rein in presidential authority to use military action against Iran without congressional approval. The resolution passed the Senate last month with bipartisan support. It will now be sent to the White House, where Trump is expected to veto it. Congress is not expected to have enough votes for an override.
A researcher at the UW has found some of the same election interference we saw in 2016 is happening once again this year. Young Me Kim looked at millions of political ads online and found that Kremlin-linked groups were trying to hide out on Facebook and Instagram and influence how we see issues and candidates in the states. Kim first saw this in 2016 as part of a big research project, and now she's seeing these ads pop up again.
But one thing clear is that this is very systematic. So it is relatively early because it was, we captured this like a post in September 2019. So it's a few months before the Iowa caucus. But they already started a very systematic operation.
Tonight on News 3 at 10, we look at who these groups are targeting and how the ads we're seeing now will change as we get closer to the election.
Despite poor showings at Tuesday's primaries, Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign is still looking toward the Wisconsin primary on April 7th. His campaign will open at an office on North Hamilton Street in Madison this Saturday. The grand opening will include a brief program and canvas training. All right, 6:11 is your time this morning, and it's another foggy start to the day across southern Wisconsin as we take a live look outside. Hattie's also tracking some more rain for your Thursday. She'll have an update for us just ahead.
Plus, we're continuing our coverage of the coronavirus and showing you how new restrictions are taking a toll on the local economy. That's next on News 3 Now This Morning. Just into the Channel 3000 Alert Center this morning, U.S. officials say 3 service members, 1 from the UK, and 2 Americans were killed, and dozens more injured after a rocket strike on a military base in Iraq. The military says about 18 rockets struck the base. Iraqi security forces found a truck equipped to fire rockets a few miles from that site. We will continue to follow this breaking news story throughout the morning and bring you updates as we learn more.
Dow futures this morning are down more than 1,000 points following President Trump's address to the nation. S&P 500 and NASDAQ futures are also taking a significant hit, both down over 4%. Global markets are also showing a hit, dropping Japan's market more than 20% and 7.4% in Australia. Investors say they see no end game in sight, and according to one market strategist, traders are increasing their sales, thinking that the U.S. government is behind the curve in their response to the coronavirus.
The tax man will come later than usual for some people affected by the virus. President Donald Trump is directing the IRS to defer payments without penalty for certain businesses and individuals, although he didn't say who will get an extension and how long that extension will last. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says delaying the April 15th deadline could put $200 billion back into the economy.
Even though airfare and the price of gasoline continue to fall, consumers saw a slight increase in the cost of goods and services last month. According to the Labor Department, consumer prices inched up 0.1% in February. Rising food and shelter costs pushed up the cost of living.
A new report finds incomes in Wisconsin are rising among the fastest in the whole country. According to the latest data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, after adjusting for inflation, Wisconsin wages increased 3% between 2015 and 2018. Now, compare that to a national increase of 2.2%, and out of all states, wages in Wisconsin grew the 8th fastest during this time period.
Meanwhile, airlines are scrambling to adjust the new travel restrictions this morning. A spokesperson for Delta says it will be making adjustments in service to comply with the government travel directive. Delta is also waiving fees on affected flights. United and American Airlines say they are also complying with travel restrictions. American says this change will only affect 15 flights daily. It's still unknown how many other flights are being impacted for other airlines.
The estimated cost of the 737 MAX crisis for Boeing is now over $18 billion and counting. The FAA ordered the planes grounded after a second deadly crash a year ago this week. Boeing's costs include compensation to the company's airline customers, increased costs to build the jet, and a $100 million compensation fund to the families of crash victims. But Boeing will face litigation costs that could reach far higher than that.
Mayor says they are recalling mixed nuts sold in Wisconsin due to an undeclared tree nut allergen. The company says more than 13,000 are affected by a potential risk of undeclared Brazil nuts. The product was sold at Mayer Superstore locations in 6 states between December 2019 and March 9th of this year. Those of you who bought the product should throw it away or return it to the store where you bought it.
The longer you live a healthy lifestyle, the less likely you are to develop certain diseases later on. It may seem obvious, but that's what researchers at Boston University School of Medicine have now proven. They found every 5-year period of non-smoking, healthy eating, and regular exercise cut a person's hypertension risk by 1/3 and diabetes and cardiovascular risks by 25%.
6:18 now. Hattie's here with a check of your weather. Good
Southern
morning.
Wisconsin.
Windy and chilly. Maybe you want to head inside. 7 years and $10.5 million later, Madison's new Penny Library is ready for visitors. The new branch of the Madison Public Library opens today. It's located in the Royster Corners building at Cottage Grove and Dempsey Roads, just a few blocks down from the temporary location where Penny set up shop for the past year. The new space has a drive-through book drop, a play space for kids 5 and under, and wood ceilings made from reclaimed ash from trees cut down to stop the spread of the emerald ash borer. A ribbon cutting is scheduled for 11 a.m. today, and if you haven't been inside already, you should check it out. Really awesome.
Yeah, it looks like a great space. Looking forward to seeing it. All right, 20 minutes past 6 o'clock right now. Spring is around the corner, but one study says no matter what season it is, Madison's weather still has room for improvement. We'll tell you why.
And coming up in our next half hour, how leaders in Dane County are making sure we're prepared for more possible cases of the coronavirus. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, 6:23 on your Thursday. Beautiful shot there from Paula of rural Monticello. Always love the colors like that.
Looks like a painting.
It does, doesn't it?
So nice, and especially since we're not seeing any of that sunshine this morning.
I know, it's been kind of a dreary week.
It certainly has. We have more sunshine in the forecast for tomorrow, and spring is right around the corner. With that comes greener grass, longer days, and better weather.
All things I can get on board with, but a new study by Lawn Starter says Madison actually has the worst weather in the whole country.
Yeah, an ideal day in their eyes is defined as a high temperature from 70 to 80 degrees. But here's the kicker. The relative humidity has to be between 40 and 60%. Researchers found that Madison has 0 ideal days per year, making us #1 when it comes to the worst weather. So who had the best weather? Well, according to them, El Centro, California.
Now, despite that, Madison has been named the 5th happiest city in America this year. Researchers at Wallet Hub looked into everything from the depression rate to the income growth rate and average leisure time spent per day. Madison got beat out by Fremont, California, Plano, Texas, San Jose, California, and Irvine, California. So if you want to be happy, move to California. March 20th, 1 week from tomorrow, is the International Day of Happiness. Well, we're pretty happy living here, even if there is a chance we have some bad weather. And that's what we're asking you to sound off on today.
Yeah, so do you think we have the worst weather in America? Well, it says 19% of you agree. We need to bring in our weather expert. 0 ideal days. That relative humidity, though, that's the kicker.
Yeah, I look back at our statistics. We for sure have days where we hit highs in the 70s, many days each year. But it's that relative humidity range that they gave us that's the kicker, 40 to 60%. We typically have relative humidity in the 60% higher range here in Madison. So that's where they're getting us.
I mean, we all think we enjoy Madison's weather. I mean, maybe not during the winter time as much.
I know, my ideal day, going Saturday morning, walking around the farmer's market, grabbing some Stellas, taking it slow, 70-degree day. We have plenty of those.
We do. And, you know, we don't have to worry about dry skin in the summer either. So I guess there's the good side.
That's just one study. We'll just throw that aside.
Bring on the humidity.
They really should have done a few more things to determine that best weather, but oh well. Our weather for today, not bad temperature-wise.